Do you remember the first time you felt pain so deep it split your chest open, not from the world outside, but from within? That quiet moment when the laughter faded, the room emptied, and all that remained was the dull ache of existence. You weren't broken by what happened. You were broken by what you believed about what happened. This is where the Buddha begins. He did not promise a world without pain. He never said, "Come, follow me and suffering will vanish." What he offered was far more radical. He offered a mirror. A way of seeing so sharp, it could slice through the illusion we wear like skin. And if you have the courage to see, truly see, then suffering becomes a choice, not an obligation. You see, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree, not as a god, not as a savior, but as a man who refused to look away. He turned toward every shadow in his heart, every craving, every fear, and he saw them for what they were, passing clouds. He did not slay them. He did not run from them. He simply saw them clearly, and in that clarity, they lost their power. This is where we begin, not by changing the world, but by changing how we see the world. When your thoughts go unchecked, they become tyrants. They convince you that you are what you feel. That anger is truth. That fear is reality. But the Buddha taught, the mind is like a monkey, drunk, stung by a scorpion, possessed by a demon. If you do not train it, it will drag you to the depths of despair. But if you train it, if you sit with it, breathe with it, become intimate with its chaos, then the mind becomes your ally. Then thoughts become clouds in a vast sky, not chains around your throat. This is not poetry. This is not philosophy. This is liberation. And yet, to the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. A man sitting in silence, a woman watching her breath, but within that stillness lies a revolution. You are not your thoughts. You are not your pain. You are not even your story. You are the awareness that sees them all. To believe otherwise is to suffer, to cling to what is impermanent, to reject what is, to crave what isn't. This is dukkha, the first noble truth. The noble truth that so many resist, because it is easier to chase pleasure than to sit with pain, easier to blame the world than to meet the wound within. But the Buddha's brilliance wasn't just that he saw suffering. It was that he traced its path. He showed the source, tanha, craving, and then, like the great physician he was, offered a cure, a way out. Not through belief, not through worship, but through practice, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. The Eightfold Path is not a ladder, it is a wheel, and every spoke must turn together if the wheel is to roll. Discipline, then, is not punishment, it is love. Love expressed as structure. Love that says, I will not abandon myself in chaos. I will return, again and again, to the breath, to the body, to this moment, because here, only here, is where suffering ends. When you greet your thoughts like old friends, when you see anger and whisper, I see you, when you notice grasping and choose to let go, you are no longer a victim of your life, you are its witness. And in witnessing, you reclaim your power. The Buddha never asked you to believe. He asked you to see. See what is true. See what is real. And in that seeing, let falsehood fall away. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to renounce the world. You only need to wake up. To stop sleepwalking through your days, chained to the lie that your worth depends on your thoughts, your past, your wounds. The lotus grows from the mud, not in spite of it, but because of it. So do you. And now we breathe. And so we breathe, not to escape, but to return. Return to the one place we've abandoned the most, right here, right now. You were taught to run, taught to fix, to improve, to conquer. The world speaks in imperatives. Be more, do more, and somewhere in the chase you began to believe you were incomplete. That peace was something to achieve, that freedom lived on the other side of effort. But what if peace was not a reward, but your original state? What if freedom was not earned, but remembered? The Buddha never spoke of adding more. He spoke of letting go of illusion, letting go of craving, letting go of the tight grip on what must be so we can hold gently what is. A clenched fist cannot receive. And so we open, slowly, tenderly, like the petals of a lotus rising from dark waters. You may ask, how can I let go when the world demands I hold on? When loss is real, when betrayal has left its mark, when grief has made a home in my chest. The Buddha would not ask you to deny the pain. He would ask you to walk through it with open eyes. This is the courage of mindfulness. Not avoidance, not distraction, but a fierce, compassionate seeing. To sit with discomfort, not as its prisoner, but as its student. Because everything, yes, everything is your teacher. The harsh word, the closed door, the ache of loneliness, the flash of anger, the restlessness at midnight. These are not interruptions to your path. They are your path, and the way you meet them. This is your practice. You do not need a robe or a monastery to live as a monk. What you need is presence. What you need is honesty. What you need is the willingness to wake up in the middle of your life and whisper, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm ready. Ready to feel. Ready to see. Ready to break the trance. Because suffering thrives in unconsciousness. Suffering feeds on the lie that this moment should be different, that we must grasp, that we must fix. But awareness melts that lie. It exposes it, like morning light through mist. And once seen clearly, suffering loses its grip. This is not easy. This is not instant, but it is possible. The first step. Recognize that you are not broken. Even in your most fragmented state, you are whole. You are not the storm. You are the sky. You are not the fire. You are the space in which the fire burns. Breathe into that truth. There is no salvation in becoming someone else. There is only liberation in seeing who you already are, with clarity, with compassion, with unwavering honesty. This is insight, vipassana, the art of seeing things as they are, and it begins always with the breath. You are not asked to change it, only to notice it, because in noticing, you become intimate with life. You dissolve the illusion of separation. The breath does not belong to you. It is you. It is the pulse of this living moment. And what is the nature of this moment? It is impermanent. This is the great truth that sets us free and terrifies us the most. Everything changes. The seasons, the tides, the faces in the mirror, the ones we love, the thoughts that haunt us, the joys that uplift us, all of it passing clouds. To cling is to drown, but to let go, to float on the river of change with open hands and an open heart. That is awakening. And so we ask, if everything changes, what remains? Only awareness, only the witness, only that still, spacious knowing at the center of all your chaos. That is your refuge. That is your home, not in the past, not in the future, not in the stories you tell yourself, but here, right here, when you taste this presence, even for a moment, you know it. This is what you've been longing for. Not more things, not more praise, but more of this. More of you, the real you, the quiet you, the you that has been waiting patiently beneath every mask you wear. The world may call this foolish. It may call it lazy, even dangerous, but the Buddha called it freedom. Because when you stop needing the world to be different, when you stop outsourcing your peace to external events, you become unshakable. You become a flame that cannot be blown out, not because storms stop coming, but because you stop fearing the wind. Let's speak now of action, not reactive action, but wise action. For insight without action becomes self-indulgence. Knowing without doing is just another form of sleep. The Buddha did not only sit, he walked, he taught, he lived in the marketplace, and among beggars. His awakening was not a retreat from the world, but a return to it with eyes wide open and heart wide open. So too must we return, with mindfulness as our compass, and compassion as our path. When you speak, speak with care. Words leave wounds, or they leave peace. When you act, act with integrity. Each choice echoes across the fabric of your life. When you work, work not only to earn, but to serve. Every task is an altar, every moment a chance to embody wisdom. This is right action, not rigid morality, but lived compassion. And what of failure? What of the times you fall short? Do not turn away. Do not judge. Bow. Yes, bow to your humanity. Bow to the messy, glorious, sacred truth of being alive. The Buddha did not awaken because he was perfect. He awakened because he saw imperfection clearly and loved it into liberation. You must do the same. Forgive yourself, not just once, but endlessly. Begin again, not just daily, but moment by moment. Every breath is a rebirth. And now, let's speak of resilience, not as force, not as denial, but as surrender. True resilience is not pushing through, it is yielding wisely. Like bamboo in the storm, you bend but do not break. You allow, you adapt, and in doing so, you discover a strength far greater than control. This is not the strength of the ego, it is the strength of the Dharma, the strength that comes from alignment with truth. And where does this strength arise? From gratitude. Yes, gratitude, not for what is easy, but for what is real. Gratitude for the pain that woke you, for the emptiness that humbled you, for the silence that held you. When you stop waiting for life to meet your conditions before you're grateful, you become invincible, because nothing can take from you what you no longer cling to. The Buddha smiled often, not because life was painless, but because he no longer resisted its nature. That smile, it is yours too, not a smile of denial, but of deep knowing. The smile of someone who has seen suffering, seen impermanence, seen the craving mind and still chooses love. And now we return, once more to the breath, because in the end, this is the path, to see clearly, to love deeply, to act wisely, to live fully, and to suffer only when necessary. There will be days when clarity feels distant, when the fog returns, when the breath feels shallow, the body restless, and the mind a storm of doubt. These days do not mean you failed. These days are part of the path. Even the Buddha had Mara visit him, Mara the voice of illusion, the tempter of fear, the whisperer of you are not enough. Mara still comes, even after awakening. But now, the Buddha does not run. He simply says, I see you, Mara. Come, sit, let's have tea. What if you did the same? What if instead of exiling your shadow, you offered it a seat? What if you made peace with your fear, your longing, your mistakes, not by feeding them but by facing them? This is how darkness loses its teeth, not by being slain, but by being seen. And once seen, it cannot rule you. This is where real transformation begins, not in the fireworks of sudden change, but in the quiet, consistent return to truth. There is no enlightenment somewhere else, no light at the end of the tunnel. The light is here, in this breath, in this body, in this moment of raw awareness, but only if you stop running. Because everything you run from your loneliness, your anger, your confusion, as something to show you, and until you listen, it will return. The Buddha did not transcend being human, he embodied it completely. And that is your calling to become so fully yourself that even your pain is transformed into compassion, so deeply aware that even your sorrow becomes a doorway to presence. This is not a path of self-improvement. This is a path of self-remembering. Remembering what you are before the world told you what to be. Remembering the quiet strength in your spine, the softness in your gaze, the silence beneath the noise. You are not here to win. You are here to wake up. And waking up is not about becoming better. It's about becoming real. Real enough to cry. Real enough to forgive. Real enough to say, I don't know. Because wisdom is not certainty. Wisdom is intimacy with mystery. The Buddha's wisdom was not in having all the answers, but in holding the questions with tenderness. Who am I? What is this moment? What does freedom truly mean? And each time he returned to silence, to stillness, to breath, he heard the answers arise not as words but as presence. You can hear them too, but only when you stop drowning in noise. So unplug, not from the world, but from your distraction with it. Turn down the volume of your mind and listen to the quiet hum beneath all things. That hum is truth. That hum is you. Let us now speak of belief, because belief too can be a trap. Many believe in the Buddha, but belief alone does not liberate. The Buddha said, do not believe anything simply because I have said it. Test it. Experience it. Let it become your own direct knowing. This is the fierce independence of Dharma. You are not asked to kneel. You are asked to see. And what you see directly, intimately becomes your wisdom. Not borrowed, not memorized, but lived. And this lived wisdom, it changes everything. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're no longer asleep. You no longer mistake pain for punishment. You no longer chase pleasure like a drug. You begin to live in rhythm with reality. And reality, though it may be raw, is sacred. Your emotions become weather systems, felt, honored, and released. Your thoughts become clouds, visible, yet passing. You stop trying to control the ocean, and instead, you learn to surf. This is the grace of surrender, not giving up, but giving in to the flow of what is. You still act, you still care, but now your actions arise from love, not fear. You still plan. You still dream, but now you're not imprisoned by the outcome. You are free, because you are here, because you are whole, because you know the difference between the voice of the ego and the voice of truth. And truth is always quiet. Truth is always kind. Truth never says, you are not enough. Truth says, you are, you have always been. And the more you listen, the more you remember. You remember that discipline is devotion, that stillness is strength, that real success is peace. You remember that the path was never out there. It was always here, beneath your feet. Every step holy, every breath prayer, even the pain sacred. Yes, even the pain, because pain too is a teacher. It breaks what is false. It humbles what is proud. It brings us to our knees, not to beg, but to bow to life as it is, not as we wish it to be. And in that bow there is power, because nothing is more powerful than one who no longer resists reality, not because they are passive, but because they are wise, because they've tasted the cost of resistance and chosen peace again and again. And that choosing, that's the path. Not once, not twice, but every moment. You choose awareness over reaction, compassion over blame, presence over performance. And in that choosing, suffering begins to dissolve, not all at once, but like ice in sunlight. It melts, and what remains is you, the you that has been waiting to be seen. the you that cannot be touched by fear, the you that has nothing to prove, because you are what you've been seeking, not in some far-off state, not after years of trying, but right now, as you are, as you breathe, as you listen. This is the truth the Buddha offered, not in riddles but in silence, not in commandments, but in invitation. Come, sit, see, be with what is, and slowly, gently, everything false will fall away, and what remains, what always remains, is freedom. And freedom is not a concept. It is not a prize waiting at the end of suffering. It is not an escape from pain, but the ability to meet pain without fear. Freedom is presence, stripped of resistance. It is the calm center in the cyclone, untouched by chaos, unmoved by praise or blame. But the world has trained you otherwise. It told you freedom meant doing whatever you want, chasing pleasures, avoiding discomfort, running faster, trying harder, having more. And in that endless running, something inside you grew tired, not just in the body, but in the soul. Because this is not freedom. This is slavery wrapped in gold. To truly be free, you must become intimate with what is, not what should be. You must stop bargaining with reality. Stop pleading for a better moment. This moment is not the enemy. It is your doorway, your practice, your teacher. And every time you resist it, you close the door. But every time you bow to it, you walk through. So bow. Bow to the pain. Bow to the silence. Bow to the unbearable beauty and unbearable loss. And then stand up taller. Because you are not here to worship suffering. You are here to outgrow it. The Buddha's path is not about glorifying struggle. It's about understanding it so deeply that it no longer owns you. You will still cry. You will still feel heartbreak. But you will not be broke because your sense of self no longer depends on what happens to you, but on how deeply you are connected within. You see, most suffering comes not from life, but from your resistance to life. From the story you tell yourself about what things mean. Someone leaves, and the mind says, I am unworthy. You fail, and the mind whispers, I will never be enough. You're not just in pain, you are trapped in interpretation. But interpretation is optional. It can be questioned. It can be seen through. And when you learn to question the stories, you begin to reclaim the silence beneath them. The silence that is never anxious, never afraid, never in need of approval. That silence is your true nature. And to return to it is not weakness, it is mastery. This is why the Buddha smiled, not because life became easier, but because his inner war had ended. And now it is your turn, not to become him, but to become you, the you that has no masks, no performance, no fear of impermanence. Because when you truly understand that everything passes, you no longer cling. And when you no longer cling, you are free. Not because pain won't arise, but because it won't stay. Not because people won't leave, but because their leaving doesn't shake your ground. Not because storms don't come, but because you've become the sky. And from the sky's perspective, nothing is ever truly lost. Now, let's speak of love. Not romantic love. Not the love the world sells you in movies or fairy tales, but the love that arises naturally when the self becomes spacious. Loving kindness. Metta. The kind of love that doesn't need a reason. The kind of love that sees the suffering in another, and instead of judging it says, meet. The kind of love that forgives, not because it forgets, but because it no longer wants to carry the weight. This love is your nature, but it has been buried under stories, fears, and conditions. Love me only if I'm good. Love me only if I succeed. Love me only if I don't fail again. But Metta says, I love you as you are, in your mess, in your stillness, in your imperfection. And when you offer that love to yourself first, it overflows. It spills into your words, into your work, into the smallest interaction. You begin to see that everyone is walking through a storm you cannot see, and so you soften. You stop fighting people, because you see their pain behind their masks. You stop proving yourself, because you no longer doubt your worth. You stop defending, attacking, clinging, because you are held, not by anyone else, but by your own awareness. This is what it means to awaken, to move through the world with eyes open, heart open, hands open, to respond, not react, to choose presence, not panic, to stay, even when it hurts, because you know that this too is part of the path. The Buddha did not avoid suffering. He walked straight into it and came out the other side with wisdom in his eyes and peace in his step. You can too, but it takes practice. It takes silence. It takes the willingness to let go of everything you thought you were, so you can remember everything you've always been. And it takes trust. Trust in the Dharma. Trust in yourself. Trust that you were not born broken, that even now, even in this moment, you are enough. Not because you've achieved something, but because you are something. Something ancient, something eternal, something so still that the whole world could rest in it. And that something is awareness. It is not born. It does not die. It does not win or lose. It only sees. It only is. And you, dear one, are not separate from it. You are it. And when you realize that truly in your bones, in your breath, you are no longer a seeker, you are found. And once you are found, you no longer need to chase. Not validation, not attention, not even happiness. Because joy, true joy, is not something you seek. It is what rises naturally when resistance falls away. That's the paradox, isn't it? The more you chase happiness, the more it escapes you. But the moment you stop running, the moment you sit down with what is the joy you've been searching for, reveals itself as the space that holds it all, the beauty and the sorrow, the peace and the restlessness, the beginning and the end. The awakened ones laugh, not because they have avoided life's wounds, but because they've seen the illusion of separation. There is no you and life. There is no you and now. There is only this, the unfolding of what has always been here, waiting for you to see it clearly. And when you see clearly, the war ends. Not outside, not in the world, but inside. You stop fighting the moment. You stop resisting the breath. You stop fleeing from yourself. And in that stillness, a new way of living is born. A way without struggle. A way without pretending. A way without the need to prove, defend, grasp or run. This is not a fantasy. This is the Dharma. It is the truth that has been waiting for you, not in books, not in teachers, not in philosophies, but in your own quiet presence, in the pause between two thoughts, in the space between two breaths, in the tender, sacred now. Yes, life will still change, people will still hurt, things will still break, but you will remain soft, steady, spacious, because you've come home. And what does it mean to come home? It means no longer outsourcing your peace to the weather of the world. It means meeting whatever rises not with fear, but with love. It means living from your center, even when everything around you is spinning. It means choosing truth over comfort, silence over noise, being over doing. And now finally, you understand what the Buddha meant when he said, "I teach one thing, and one thing only, suffering, and the end of suffering." Not because suffering is the enemy, but because suffering is the call to awaken. And you have heard that call. You are no longer numb, no longer asleep. You are here, breathing with life, bowing to reality, walking the path not to become someone, but to remember who you've always been. You are the sky. You are the silence. You are the stillness beneath all storms. And from this place you can live fully, you can love wildly, you can grieve deeply. And through it all, you can remain free. So breathe, bow, begin again. Not because you must, but because you can. Because right now, in this moment, you are free to choose presence, free to see clearly, free to let go, free to stop suffering. Because suffering is optional, but only if you do this. Wake up.